Most recently, New Zealand has signed up to the 2007 Declaration on the Millennium Development Goals by several heads of state. NZ Aid expects to contribute in New Zealand dollars 10.8 million to sexual and reproductive health activities in the 07-08 through bilateral and regional programs and multilateral grants. In the Pacific, NZ Aid has prioritised sexual and reproductive health as a key programming area, and I'm delighted about that priority. NZ Aid is in the process of developing a specific climate change strategy within its Environment Policy Implementation Plan. It is likely that the strategy will mainstream climate change into all programs and operations of the agency. So, in conclusion, one of the things that strikes me about working with population and development is that we have many of the facts. We have many of the solutions. Indeed, so many of the issues discussed are blatantly preventable. We just need to be brave and drive the action. We need to be brave as politicians, and we need to be brave as a community in motivating and informing people about the need for what has to be done. I want to leave you with an extract from Gordon Brown's address to the United Nations in New York in July just last year. He said, "We cannot allow our promises that become pledges to descend into just aspirations and then wishful thinking, and then only words that symbolise broken promises." End quote. Thank you again for this opportunity. I look forward to learning more this afternoon and tomorrow, and am delighted to be here and to share with you in this conference. Thanks very much.
Ms. Pettis, it's good to know that you are doing some good job in the area of development and population. We could learn in Australia a bit more from you. You are a small nation, 3 million population. 4. I'm sorry.
Who's counting?
I'm out of date. Population, you are being a small country, easy to do it. Australia is a big country. India, where I come, is a bigger one. In New Zealand, as I understand, your population is no problem. The people come to ship to Australia, become our problem. How we do about that? Transferring people from one country to other, how do we stop? Do we stop or we don't? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we don't want to lose population in New Zealand, and there are a large number of New Zealanders who live in Australia. In fact, it's quite a debatable political point at the moment that the opposition is trying to use to its advantage. Yes, management of population, even in a small country like ours, is something that occupies a great deal of time on the part of demographers, policymakers and politicians. Because while we only have 4 million people in a long series of the 3 islands, which is only slightly smaller than England, they are all concentrated in one place. 1 million in Auckland, and 3 million throughout the rest. So demographers, statisticians, policymakers and politicians do spend a great deal of time on working on town planning and development, and also integrating immigration policy, so that we try and get a balance in our country as much as possible. Our greatest number of immigrants come from Britain, and like a lot of our Western countries, some uninformed people say that we're being overtaken by people from Asia and Greater Asia, which is totally untrue. But if you're from Britain, you look like us, so you just meld in. we are more and more, under this current government in New Zealand, acknowledging our multicultural nation, and we embrace people from throughout the world, because everybody brings skills to our country, and we have a skilled migration policy. We have a skill shortage in New Zealand at the moment, so that means I'll work till at least 70, because we don't have enough people to fill the jobs we have available. So while we may, in short, that wasn't short. While we may seem like a very small country with no problems or issues around population, we do have issues, and we need to continue to put a lot of effort and study into it while we are still at a manageable stage, rather than waiting until the horse is bolted.
My name is Scott Walker, and I'm a student at the ANU in Canberra. Thanks very much for your speech, Ms. Pettis. My question, to get back to the theme of women and the Millennium Development Goals, in Australia, particularly in the last federal election, the increase of women parliamentarians has increased significantly, which I think is a great thing. Now, my question is, what is the situation like that in New Zealand, and what effect do you, and what, obviously to your credit, but what effect does that have on Pacific Island countries and the rest of the Asia Pacific in sort of encouraging this kind of a change in attitude?
Thank you. Well, I'm not going to gloat, Claire, because we're only 30%, and that's still not good enough. We have 51% of the population in New Zealand, and to only have 30% representation in the Parliament is still not equal representation, is it? It's not. So we keep working on it, but you have to inform and educate as much as possible. Because in New Zealand we had a Prime Minister, we've got a male Governor-General of now, and a very good Governor-General he is too, but we had a female Prime Minister, female Governor-General, female Head of the Justice, and female head, no, not Reserve Bank. Anyway, we had 4 of them. There was two areas of justice, Sean Elias and or somebody else, anyway. Yeah. So, and look, in the papers all of the time, it was enough already. There'd been a takeover. Well, when I grew up in the 50s and 60s, it was men everywhere. And nobody was saying enough already, enough already. So while we have made considerable achievements, we still do have some way to go. And it's actually not about numbers so much. It's about the change of attitude and policy making that can occur when you have equal representation. Look, I don't think the word sex was mentioned in Parliament in the 50s at all. Clearly there was a bit of it going on, because that's when I was born, but nobody ever talked about it openly like we do today. And I think talking about sex and reproductive health issues has become easier, because it is an area that women are comfortable about talking about. So therefore it becomes more inclusive, and so do more males feel comfortable about talking about those issues as well. And it's about like early childhood education and demographics that we touched on earlier on. Where do we need to build kindergartens? Where do we need to have services that are helpful to families, women and children? And women do that easily, because it's an area that we've got a lot of experience in. Despite the fact that we are in the paid workforce more than we've ever been, we are still the primary caregivers while our children are very young, and we are on placing to kindergarten committees and other areas of early childhood. We are hoping that it's sending a positive message to the Pacific. We attend as many Pacific forums and conferences as possible, and we try very hard to send women MPs when we can, but it's certainly not exclusive. We try and have 50-50 representation, and talk to our Pacific MPs about the advantages of having a better representation of females in the Parliament, that it